A new windshield on a Bugatti Chiron can cost $60,000. Insurance alone can set you back $3,500 a month. Owning a supercar is expensive. Maybe you get into an accident. Maybe you're just a crazy-ass person. Even if you drive around like a granny, prepare your wallet. Everybody always talks about general price tags with supercars and hypercars, but nobody ever talks about the dark side, maintaining them. Everything from insurance to servicing to repairs, it's not as simple as just saving up for your dream car. You better buckle up because the hidden costs are coming. Anyway, so today we're doing a rough list of the top 5 most expensive cars to maintain, more or less. You know, I'm not like a Pagani mechanic or a Bugatti specialist. I do my best. To be honest, to find information on this stuff is incredibly difficult. There's not a single list out there that talks about this online. Nothing. I mean, some people, they talk about BMWs, they talk about Mercedes, but I want to get into the juicy stuff, you know? I want to get into like the exotic hypercars, the Paganis, all that stuff. So I straight up called some billionaires and supercar owners, checked some online experiences and some investigating, and to be honest, the numbers are pretty surprising. Also, quick side note, I don't want to include like older cars. I want to stick to newer cars because we were in Germany filming a $300 million Mercedes. And of course, if something happened to that, then that would probably top the list. So we're sticking to newer cars. By the way, before we get in, fun fact, Mr. Bean is the world record holder for the most expensive repair of all time at $1.4 million on his McLaren F1. And of course, by Mr. Bean, I mean Rowan Atkinson, the actor, not actually like Mr. Bean on his little Mini. All right, so let's start off with number 5, the Ferrari LaFerrari. This is a bit of a surprising one. I'll explain why in just a second. But let's just start off with insurance. Insurance alone will be about $2,000 a month. A month! That's about $24,000 a year just to insure your car. To replace your tires, it'll be $500 each for the tires in the front and $900 each for the tires in the back. So that's $1,000 in the front, $1,800 in the back. If you include labor costs on top of that, that's about $3,200 just to swap your tires. And you got to do that every couple of years. Speaking of wheels, if you guys want to change your brake, get a little bit of a brake job, that's going to be $40,000. And again, it's one thing if you just have this car to look at it at home, but a lot of people are going to be driving it around, pushing it a little bit, maybe even putting it on a track, so the brakes and the tires are going to be the first things to go. So if you do own a LaFerrari and you're planning on pushing it, you can expect to pay about $45,000 a year just on the wheels alone. Now, believe it or not, there are a bunch of other cars that are way more expensive to repair and maintain. There's one thing that sets Ferrari apart, and that's that even if you have the money ready to buy a LaFerrari, it's not that easy. Ferrari won't just take your money. In fact, you have to own a minimum of 5 other Ferraris just to even apply to potentially buy the LaFerrari, which is freaking crazy. If you think about it, how much a Ferrari costs more or less, they're pretty much asking you to have spent an extra $1 million before even applying to get a LaFerrari. Anyways, nowadays you can skip all of that and just buy it directly from the secondhand market, but it's gonna cost you a lot more money than the original. So good luck. All right, number 4, the Pagani Codalunga. All right, so we're gonna talk about the Pagani Codalunga, but to be honest, even the Pagani Huayra is much more expensive to maintain than the LaFerrari, but I just couldn't have, 2 Paganis in the same top 5 list. I wanted to kind of spread it out a little bit, right? I actually got to drive a Pagani Huayra Roadster in the UK that had a $250,000 paint job. Imagine scratching that. On the same day, I also got to drive another Captain America themed Huayra that had $50,000 rims. I mean, imagine creeping up to a McDonald's drive-thru in one of these Paganis with those tall-ass curbs that they have. I panic even driving my SUV through those drive-thrus. But again, right now we've been talking about the Pagani Huayra. The Codalunga just came out, and that's a much, much more expensive car. The Pagani Huayra is about $2.5 million. The Codalunga is around $7.4 million. So imagine how much more expensive everything is. Because it's a newer car, we don't have that kind of access to the information yet. It will come out later, but pretty wild. Every single bolt that you see on the car costs $80. Every single tiny little bolt, $80. And you guys know how many bolts are on the car? 1,400. And for all you mathematicians out there, that's $112,000 worth of bolts on one car, which is wild. You can literally buy a used Ferrari for that much. Anyways, Pagani usually charges around $8,000 for an annual checkup and oil change. And if you dink the front or the back, The rear view camera is $6,600 and the sensors around it are $2,000. So because the car is so new, there's very little information on what every single little repair and maintenance would cost, but we do know that only 5 Codalungos will ever be made, and the more rare a car is, the more expensive it's going to be to maintain and repair. Because if you break one piece, I mean, good luck finding that. But then again, if you want a Pagani, you might not even feel it. $6,600 for a rear view camera? Sure, why not? What's that? All right, so moving on to number 3, we got the new Koenigsegg CC850. This is the newest Koenigsegg, limited to 50 units, and again, so soon that there's no real information out there for peasants like myself, but we do know some things. But to be honest, all Koenigsegg's fall into the same category because they're so rare. The Jesko is limited to 125 units, the CC-XR Trevita is limited to 2 units, and the One is limited to 1 unit. Again, the more rare a car is, the more expensive it's going to be to maintain. And Koenigsegg's are rare as hell. Speaking of the Jesko, the option to have the naked carbon fiber body look costs an extra $443,000. That's more than a Rolls Royce, just for a look. Can you imagine if you're like stuck in traffic and it starts hailing? It just hail starts falling on your $443,000 body look. Moving on, if you want to get the carbon wheels with the Michelin Cup 2R tires, that'll be an extra $110,700. Obviously, these have to be replaced every couple of years, especially if you're taking it to the track. Don't get me wrong, you can dumb it down and get much cheaper tires. There's tires out there for like $5,000, maybe $2,000. But if you're a rich-ass person and you want the best of the best, $110,700. Lastly, annual service, just a very, very basic service, will be about $8,000 to $10,000. All right, moving on, we got number 2, the Bugatti Veyron, the Bugatti Chiron, and the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. Yes, the costs are a little bit different, but the costs are shocking. So Bugatti in general recommends an oil change once a year. And for a Bugatti Veyron, it costs $25,000 for an oil and fluid change. That's because it has 16 different drain plugs compared to just one in a normal car.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
They literally need to fly out a Bugatti technician over to you to show your mechanic how to do it, and they need to remove the rear wheels and the brakes and some extra lining underneath the car just to access the drain plugs. Moving on a Bugatti Chiron, if your windshield cracks, $60,000. The thing is that these cars, they can drive like 400, 500 kilometers an hour. So at that speed, if there's a little pebble on the road, breaks your windshield, yeah, that's gonna be $60,000 just to repair. The wheels and the tires themselves are also bonkers. I drove the Bugatti Supersport on a track, and the tires I was using cost $15,000. I mean, they're literally meant to handle 500 kilometers an hour, right? Yes, you can find tires for like less, for maybe $8,000 or $2,000, but you can also go way higher. I mean, there's tires that you can put on the Bugatti for $40,000. Don't forget, the reason for this is basically because they built a machine that they want you to drive in optimum conditions. If you're crazy enough to want to drive your car at 400 kilometers an hour, everything better be perfect. Speaking of the wheels, the Bugatti Chiron also has massive brakes, and for the entire set, it'll cost $118,000 to replace. That includes all 4 discs, the pads, and the calipers. So you're also meant to replace the turbochargers on your Chiron every 4 years for $26,000. Every 5 years, Bugatti also recommends you to replace the entire fuel tank. That's $44,000. And again, because you literally have a specialist flying out from France to help repair this, the labor costs are through the roof. For example, the camshaft adjusters might be $800 a piece, but to fix them will be $21,000 worth of labor. And lastly, just to sprinkle it on top, the insurance for the Chiron costs about $3,500, which is $42,000 a year. So just adding some of this up, every 4 years, just to maintain your Bugatti Chiron will cost you about $500,000. You're spending about $500,000 just keeping your Bugatti Chiron in optimal shape, which is wild. All right, and lastly, here it is, the #1 most expensive new car to keep in your garage, the Mercedes AMG Project One. According to an Instagram user, Mercedes AMG stated in a sales contract that the One, in addition to regular service, requires an additional service every 5,000 miles when checking critical components of the driveline. So you have a regular service and an extra service every 5,000 miles. Some people drive that much in like a couple of months. I don't think you're gonna daily drive your Project One, but it's still pretty crazy. And this car is so new that there really is not that much information out there, except for one thing that was confirmed by AMG, and that's that a checkup can cost up to $850,000. Again, this was confirmed by AMG, and when I spoke to some of these billionaires and supercar collectors, they were saying the same thing. That to be honest, the AMG Project One will probably be the most expensive car to maintain in the world. Whoever gets their hands on one will probably keep it in their garage just to look at. I think very few people are gonna be pushing this thing down the street. I don't know, I might be wrong though. Anyways, that's the top 5. Let me know what you guys think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.